Hello, everybody. My name's Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. They have a number of years of experience in the dog training world. We get together, we discuss a topic, we come up with some thoughts, some ideas, and sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. Today's discussion, what I'd like to talk about is, well, to start it out, as always, I'm going through different things, and I saw something about, which I'm sure most of you have heard about the grain-free diet and that it's causing problems in hearts and et cetera, but after doing a little bit of more research on it, I found out that there were some interesting things to it, such as the fact that the person who is really the lead spokesperson for that no grain thing actually works for one of the big dog training companies and actually is in a manual from that dog training company about cardiopathy and et cetera. So while I would love to have a long discussion about the dog food and et cetera, that's not really what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is, how do you as trainers handle that? How do you as trainers handle when your clients know better than you? Let's put it that way. When your clients say, "Oh no, my vet said I can't take my dog out when it's that young, etc., and therefore I'm not going to do it." So how do you handle that? How do you handle when you want to try and tell them something and honestly they're really not listening and it's not to the benefit of the dog? Anybody want to start on that one? I know Jeff does.
Yeah, I was smirking though because of the whole.
I'm well aware.
The whole grain-free myth that's floating around the internet. Anyway, all right, yeah. So I guess owner compliance as it relates to whatever we're suggesting. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
I guess that's really what it comes down to. But it's more, how do you handle when your client knows more than you do?
So, well, first of all, if they do, I'm very open to that. That's just me, because especially, I mean, early on in my career, before I, towards the mid to late 90s, before I really started getting into psychology, like I met with people who knew a hell of a lot more than I did, and I actually learned from them. Now they couldn't apply that to dogs, so together we formed a pretty good partnership. Because, I had my understanding and I had, and they had their psychology degree. So that tended to work out well. Obviously, as I learned more about psychology and then got certified, blah, 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 obviously I can apply that better and to teach that in those circumstances in a way that they'll understand because they have a psychology background. But moral of the story, if they know something more than me, that's great. I don't know how to say this without sounding like an asshole, but they usually don't.
And that's my point, Jeff. That's my point. How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, so it depends on the personality. Some people, you need to finesse, because what we have to understand, and I know how I am with my dogs. They are my babies. So sometimes we have to deliver that information in a delicate manner, which is tough for someone like me, because and a lot of, especially when I moved down south, there's times I'm talking to people and I could see that they're a little sensitive to my personality. So, I'll just tell them, look, listen, I just want you to know I'm from Jersey. So what goes on in my head is what you hear coming out of my mouth. Don't take it personal, right? So that offers some levity to the situation, and it also sets them up for the truth, right? Because I know that I have a problem with the way I deliver information sometimes, but it is my responsibility, right, to keep the dog's best interest at heart. So
sure.
If I can't communicate that to the owner, I can't help the dog. So it depends on the owner's personality. We need to be flexible. There's almost a chameleon-like persona we have to take on in dealing with different people. In fact, I have a whole course in my dog trainer program on dealing with people. different ways people learn. Some people are visual, some people are hands-on, some people are oral or audial, whatever that word is. Anyway, so we do have to be flexible in that regard. And fortunately, when you have a lot of experience, you have a lot of stories to share with them. And I think that's where people are most receptive, when you share stories of previous clients or experiences that you've been through that they're currently going through. That's always my go-to, is sharing specific experience.
Sure.
And I think that kind of that caters to a variety of personalities. Challenges with food and veterinary care and stuff like that is very real, because we are just dog trainers. I'm fortunate that I have a long history as a holistic pet care practitioner. I've gotten multiple nutrition certifications. I have a PhD in animal naturopathy. So I don't like to throw that out at people, but if I have to mention it to offer some validity and, from what I'm saying, then I will. But again, I don't like saying that kind of stuff. I prefer to speak from experience.
Right.
And, generally, it goes well. I mean, I think the biggest challenge today, and for several years now, maybe a decade, the information on the internet. That's really what we're up against nowadays.
Sure. And I think that that's a good topic to discuss as well, is, how do you handle that when somebody Googled such and such, and well, yeah, that might be part of it, but that's not the whole deal. I mean, Steve, have you ever had anything like that happen where people said, oh, no, I know that, and that's not true, that's such and such?
Well, I sort of go along with Jeff. It's like, there are those people out there that, forget the internet, they have a background in either psychology or even just education, or they've had dogs their whole life, and, they've been successful with them. But I think that if they were as successful as they want to be, you probably wouldn't be there in the first place. So if they're calling you out, it's because, with all they know, this dog is giving them a bit of a run. And they're like, we never had a problem before. And I'm like, you can't compare one to the other.
Right.
Boy.
It's a new day now. And so, what are you thinking? I always want to know what's in their mind, because they're only going to do what they're comfortable with doing. And even if I decide what I think is right, it's not right unless they're willing to do it. So I always have to negotiate on some level with what's going to happen, because they're not going to do, if I give them advice that they won't follow, then it was useless. Why go there? So it's really, I have a lot of conversations with these folks. And, the other thing is that the sharing the stories of past cases is like a really big deal, because if, you got zillions of those, and if you've seen this before, it's highly likely whatever you've walked into, you've seen this before. So, you can share that. And then, I sort of like sharing all the sides from the people from the past, book stuff. It's like, I like to be able to say, well, Bill Campbell would do this. And this guy would do this, and, and give them the names, and, I can actually, it's like resources. Like, you can always check this out. This is what these people say about this behavior. This is what, and, what do you think? Because, if they're different. So where do you want to go with this? What, I mean, that's the way I usually do it. It's like, I give them a lot of options because they need them. And, it could be, look, the vet stuff is its own problem, that is an issue. And, if they're getting chewed up by their puppies, which is a very common thing, and I ask them why, I've been just playing with them. And I'm like, and I say to them, when they're puppies, is a lot more confinement and a lot less out time until as they're maturing, you'll start to switch that around. But if you're going to leave them out, then good luck in raising a puppy without needing a transfusion. It's and you can't be beating down the dog, and it's not right. You can't get me to say, do this, do that, do this. I'm saying, why is it out and available doing that to you? right? Why is it not on a leash when it's out? So you could, are you down on the floor? You know, what are you doing? And so, you know, I love them. I got some amazing clients. I love them. But a lot of them, they're regular folks who love their puppy, you know,
Sure.
and they want to get bit. So, somehow, you know, they allow it. I mean, I see the marks, right?
Right.
It's bad. It's bad. No matter what you say, they're gonna. So the bottom line is, how do you fight it? You don't fight it. You join it, and you become part of it, and that's the best we can do, right?
Sure. Bonnie, did you ever not say something to a client because they thought they knew more than you did? Did you ever not say, well, no, that's not the truth, or that's not the whole story?
When it comes to sterilization, I've been doing that for many, many years now.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, we're getting sterilized next week. I'm like, wait. And they're like, why? You know, the vet says, and I'm like, wait. And they're like, but, I'm like, listen, you know, it's your dog. Before you do it, I want you to look up some things.
Yeah, I do the same, Steve.
So you give them the information. You don't necessarily tell them the information. You give them the opportunity to get the information.
Yeah.
I tell them what, I give them some information straight out so that they just go and search. Yeah. You know, I'm like, look, you know, by doing this, you know, I mean, we could talk about Goldens and Vishkas and Rotties and all that. I mean, the specifics, and say, there's a lot of research right here, like a big stuff, where you're likely to really be harming your dog in the long run if you do this when it's young, you know, growing. You need to like look at this. You know, I mean, I'll get a little more firm with certain people with certain breeds. I mean, if you can talk to me about some little dog, then the research doesn't suggest that sterilizing a small breed dog doesn't like mess it up as badly as it would be a large breed dog. And they maybe have some ligament issues and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's the big dogs that need the hormones longer. I mean, that's what the research says at this point. So those are the people I really like hammer. It's like, but big dog, you better wait a while, you know.
And I think I was just going to say, it's the same thing. Like I send, if a client tells me that their vet is giving yearly booster shots to an adult 6-year-old dog, which recently someone I'm helping out, I send them Google links. I say, well, you know, you might want to check this out before you know, I know the rabies, you know, legally every 3 years, but things have changed, and here's some links. And I even go so far as sometimes if they say they're giving monthly NexGard 2 flea and tick preparations, and I kind of look at the dog. This is a dog that I just saw in video clips, and you know, and I see a dog that I don't know, doesn't look right, and getting all these shots and monthly heartworm, monthly flea and tick, getting pretty much only kibble. I have a hard time not saying something, but I don't tell them everything, because that's not what they're asking about. Something else. The dog doesn't like children and they want to have a child. How do they introduce some children in their house, or how do they do that? How do they desensitize the dog to it? How do they? And so when this particular person I'm talking about filled out, I sent her just a behavior form because I wasn't meeting with her in person. It just was kind of like the whole picture, and I really wanted to tell her everything. You know, just write out your dog. You said your vet says that he's not in pain, but he looks kind of shut down and miserable. And then she told me she thought the dog would, and I hope she doesn't hear this, go off with anybody. This is a hound mix. And she said, yeah, I have the feeling that when somebody comes over, that dog would just happily leave and get in the car with them and go.
What's the problem? I don't see the problem with that. You got a hound, and I guess I hope nobody sees it. You know what I mean? You know, they sort of like, you know, I mean, I don't see them as the most true blue. I mean, you know, they're true blue to their instinct a lot of times. Yeah. I know a lot of people wouldn't like to hear that, but
yeah, and you know, it I think it's hard. I think you do have to try to get people to talk about what they're really feeling, what's going on with them. Why did they really get in touch with you? Because sometimes it's not what they say it is.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it gets difficult, because you're working on one thing, but it's not really what's going on. And that is hard. That is really hard. And it's, for me, it's hard to confront them and say, hey, wait a minute now. You know, husband and wife, you're not on the same page. You can't even control your 2-year-old child screaming, and you're harsh, and you're, you know, so
Yeah.
you're hanging your hat on this dog, and it's not
Right.
really about the dog. That's hard to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think the more you do dog training and the more successful you are, the more you can be thoughtful and kind, and still, as Steve said, the pieces that you really feel you know you need to tell them, you can tell them just right off the bat with that. But if you overwhelm them with too much, then they can shut down and not
Sure.
be receptive to you about anything.
David, is it just about trust? Is it about having trust between the client and the trainer, that the client trusts the trainer, or is there something more?
No, that's where it's got to start, you know, right? Because if there's no trust, there's no kind of rapport to begin with. And first of all, they may not even, you know, just to get from there, then they want you to, you know, to train their dog. You may not even get to that point, but even if you do, but they're a little hesitant, but they're like, you know, you're my last hope or whatever it may be, they're going to be, you know, maybe not on board with what you're suggesting in terms of training and behavior modification and all that kind of stuff. You know, Bonnie, what you're alluding to as far as the different points of view from the owners. You could have a husband and wife, and they both have different views. I'm sure all of you had this before, like this. The wife saying, you know, if my husband would ever take my dog out for a walk, you know, he should be getting 3 walks a day, 4 walks a day, right, David? Don't you think, David? So it's like then you're put in the spot. So like what Jeff was saying, then you got to do that little tap dance, that little delicate dance where you don't want to play one side against the other, and you have to try to find a happy medium or a compromise where we can all kind of work together and collaborate to make things work. You know, so I had a lot of that. Then you have, in terms of, you know, what they read on the internet, what they've been experienced and so forth. Oh, you wouldn't believe my dog is peeing over there, pooping over there, he's doing it all out of spite. He's trying to get back at me.
Right.
And I usually will say, yeah, I know what you mean. It does come across that way. I've been there, done that. I've heard that so many times before. Trust me, it's not happening that way. And I explained to him why. I said, but I understand. It does look that way. I agree with you. So by saying that, kind of joking around about it and being serious at the same time, and agreeing in the sense that it looks that way, you're not like saying, no, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. This is the way it is. Then it's confrontational. So you got to try to lighten the mood up a little bit. And like Jeff was saying, every personality is different. You may not be able to do what I'm just saying. You may have to do it a little bit different and just adjust on the fly, and go that route, you know. But it's tough. I mean, a lot of times what I'll do too, you know, like Joel, you were bringing out the fact as far as, you know, dogs shouldn't be, you know, put out with other dogs and stuff like that, and until they're fully vaccinated and so forth. And like Jeff and I had this discussion recently on his forum, on his YouTube thing, and you gotta just do it in a slow, integrated way. There's right ways of doing it. You can socialize. Maybe you bring them in your cart and wheel them into Home Depot, whatever store that allows dogs. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to actually interact with dogs or other people, but there's an appropriate way to do that. And I often point them to like the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior. Now, whether the vet agrees with them or not, at least it's a vet to a vet. So they can hopefully they'll respect that mission statement they have as far as what the protocol is for proper socialization before the shots are put into place, basically, or the vaccinations.
Is it really all about getting information out there? Is it really, I mean, we started this conversation discussing the study or the
Grain
whatever it
free.
is about the grain free. And if I hadn't done a little bit more research, I wouldn't have found out anymore. I would have said, oh, wow, okay, that's it. Yeah, I can't feed my dog grain free. But
Yeah,
because
and
I'm a natural researcher. I like to look into things. I like to go, okay, well, that's interesting. Now
who
what's
owns
really
it?
going on here, and et cetera. And what's this really about? And so is it your job as dog trainers to get that information out there? I'm asking all of you, I guess.
Dog.
Um,
I think I was just going to say that I think that's why we are. I mean, Steve just brought up something about the hound, which, you know, is right. That's why the dog would want to go off with somebody, probably whether he had a good relationship with them or not. And that didn't cross my mind. So I'm learning from this. And I think that that's why dog trainers are students and forever students and reading and learning, is because we do want to do that research and get to all the details, the minutia of something, just like you looked up, well, who's behind this, you know, saying grain free is no good. What are the companies and what are their goals and who's involved?
yeah, I mean, I think if you let the client, you tell the client about, you know, resources where they can point them in the right direction, let them educate themselves, and then let them make up their own mind as to what validity it has. And, you know, getting back to the grain free or the food, as we all know is I've read countless stories where some of these retailers, I don't want to name names, the major retailers are actually funding a lot of this research.
Correct.
And then that research is going to the veterinary behaviorist. The veterinary behaviorist saying this is a great product because of whatever, and it's not necessarily their fault. They're just going based on what their seeing results are, and that information is then transferred obviously to the vets, who then transfer it to the client. You know, for the most part, I think.
What did you just said something, Steve, that
you started to say something
wasn't heard.
So follow the money. Joe was following the money.
Yeah,
follow the money.
The money trail. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on here? Who has to benefit by saying these things? I just know locally here, the vets I know are staunchly against raw food. I mean, they are so staunchly. And I went to a lecture for my CE where there's a board certified veterinary nutritionist doing this lecture. And when she got to the grain-free thing, she basically looks around, she goes, I know most of you don't like it, but at the end of the day, there's really nothing wrong with it if you do it right.
Wow.
It's about handling it correctly and all that, you know, she went in, and I'm sure that these guys were mad, you know, they were mad because they don't like it. But, you know, this doctor said you can get salmonella out of a dry dog food bag too. So, you know, calm down, you know, so I thought it was very fair. It was pushing for it, but she certainly couldn't beat it down. So I thought that was a fair thing. It's just that the people in the room didn't accept it very well. So, you know, it's like David says, when people go to the vet, you know, they're going oftentimes to take the veterinary recommendation. And who's giving the vet, I just know from my own personal experience, who comes to the veterinary office to schmooze? It's the big dog food company.
Of course.
And there are gifts, you know, you could have this puppy kit, or you can give to your puppy clients, or, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, it's like drug salesmen do.
Yeah, same for the people, same for humans. It's like nothing different, really.
Nothing different.
Exactly. So
that's not a good reason to, like, you know, suggest these things to the client. I mean, it'd be better to be done because you really did get some formal education in some area. And maybe there's veterinary nutrition now in the veterinary schools, but you know, back in the day, for sure, there was none. There was no behavior and there was no nutrition. So, and most people eating kennel ration had a great tune on TV, right? You know, my dog's better than your dog.
Calcan. That was Calcan.
And
Was that-
I could still tell you what that is, and that's an interesting thing, that stays that much in my head.
yeah.
So-
And dog trainers, I mean, I had a dog trainer tell me way back, I don't care what the vet said, you got to get your dog out, and sitting outside on a
Mhm.
mat and carrying a rug around. And
Yeah.
thank God she did do that, because that saved her. And from, you know, be comfortable with everybody and everything.
And I think that's a good place to stop there.
Yay, dog trainers.
I think that's kind of what I got out of this conversation today, is that it's kind of up to you guys to get that information out there for the benefit of the dogs, because it's real easy for clients and people to get persuaded by the media and the internet and etc. But if you guys are looking out for the best interest of the dogs will hopefully be okay. So I want to thank you guys for being here today. I want to thank you all for watching, and for any of the dog trainers watching out there, we're on our Zoom platform, and if anybody wants to learn about that, they can get in touch with us, and we'll be glad to teach you. Stay tuned for our next pop-up webinar, and stay tuned for our next YouTube video. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.